Hello, thanks for joining me on a new Photoshop tutorial. I'm Andrei from PSDBox, and today I will show you how I made this pretty simple Photoshop manipulation. You'll have everything that you need for this on the resources folder. You'll find the links that will take you to my website, and from there you will be able to download the stock images that you will need to make this manipulation. If you're a premium member, you will be able to download the PSD file as well, and I used Photoshop CC 2018 to create this, but you can use other Photoshop versions. You will get the same result if you know your way around in Photoshop. I would say this is an intermediate level tutorial, so it's not really difficult, but it's not for beginners either. So I hope you will enjoy it, and let's get started. So like always, we will start by creating the background of this manipulation. So I'm going to create a new canvas by pressing Ctrl-Command-N. And I'm going to put 4000 by 2600. This is the original canvas size that I used. Let's name this Giant Cola PSDBox.com. Okay, and let's click Create. Now, because I'm also recording the video, I'm going to make the canvas a little smaller. I'm gonna make it 2600 pixels wide and lock the aspect ratio and click OK. Just because I'm also recording and I don't want to have lag or make it run slow. So let's open the first image. Let's go onto our Finder or computer. And here are all the images that you need. You will see that there are some other images which I'm not going to use in the tutorial. I just put these ones here in case you want to use alternative images. And this is one of them, and this is the other one. This is the cola can that I used. I will use this one, but you also have this one. Okay, so we're going to start by opening this image. So let's drag this into Photoshop like this. And let's make it just a little bigger and flip it horizontally because we need this part to be on the right. So just make this fit your canvas and press enter. This will be our sky. So let's name it sky and delete the background because we don't need it. Next, let's place another image. So let's go to File, Place Embed, Place Embedded, and choose this other image. Okay, we will use this one to create our horizon. So let's make it just a little bigger and press enter. And what we need to do here is just remove this cloudy sky. We don't need it. So you have several ways of doing it. You can use the magic wand tool. It works really well with the tolerance of 21 and the point sample. And yeah, just copy my settings here and that's it. And we're going to create an inverted layer mask. Alt, click the new layer icon, new layer mask icon. And if you want, you can just right click and refine the mask. Let's make this on onion skin or on layers actually. And just shift the edge negatively and increase the feather just a little bit and then increase the contrast. And that way you can refine the edges. Okay. We have the horizon ready. Let's add our ground plane here. So let's go to File, Place again, Place Embedded. The reason why I'm doing it this way with Place Embedded instead of opening an image, copying and pasting it is because that way I have it as a smart object. And later on I can expand this and make it bigger if I want to increase the size of this PSD file. Okay, this is our ground plane. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger. You can see when you add it as a smart object, you can see the actual size compared to the original. So this is at half the size and that's good. Let's place this and we have to remove this part. We just need this path here. So I'm going to get the gradient tool and I'm going to create a layer mask. Let's name this path. Create a layer mask for it. And I'm going to use a linear gradient, black to white. If you see, for example, if you don't see the black to white, for example, if you have something like this or some other gradient pack opened, just click here and choose Reset Gradients and click OK. And from here, select black and white. And this is common to all Photoshop versions until now. Let's hope they don't change it in the future and I have to redo the tutorial. And just select linear, mode normal, and everything like I have it here, and just draw a gradient like this. If you don't, maybe you have to reposition this, so maybe you have to drag this up and down, and maybe reposition everything and just have everything match. Try to have the horizon more or less on the center of the image and the path right over here. And let's redo this gradient on the layer mask. So select the layer mask and just rebuild the gradient. And you can see that the transition is not even visible. It's almost seamlessly blending in with the other image. Now you could put the can over here, but I didn't like this dark part here. So what I did is I used yet another image on top of it. Let's go File, Place, Embedded. And I used this one over here. All of these images that I use for my background are from unsplash.com. It's a fantastic website to get stock images, high resolution images, which you can use for your projects. You can see this one is also quite huge. I'm gonna flip it horizontally. Okay, and I'm gonna put it right over here. Now from this image, I just need this grass over here. So I don't need the rest of the image. I'm gonna crop. I'm gonna delete the top part, but first I wanna make sure that I cover my path. Okay, so I need to cover from here to here. So what I'm gonna do now that I see it's covering my image, I'm gonna rasterize this image. Right click and choose rasterize layer. I'm gonna select the whole canvas with Control A or using the marquee tool, and I'm gonna press Control Command X. This will cut that image, and now what's left of it, I'm gonna throw it on the trash. I don't need it because it's just taking space and it's making my file size a lot bigger, and I don't need that. Okay, let me show you. So we went from 106 megabytes to just 76. Okay, and I'm gonna clip this layer to the path, and I'm gonna name it grass. What this does is just makes sure with the clipping mask, I'm just making sure that this grass is only visible over that image over there. Okay, so now I need to reveal that path again. So I'm gonna create a layer mask for the grass and hide this where the path is. So for that I have to reduce the opacity so I can actually see the path. Get the brush tool, and with the soft brush, well, not a really soft one, maybe 70% or 80%, just paint with black, of course, over the path. Maybe 80 is too hard, 50% hardness, and just remove like that. Really simple and really easy. Okay, let's raise back the opacity. Now we have to fix a little bit these edges here because they're not looking really that nice. So what we can do is use a lower opacity and flow and a softer brush. So drop the softness and drop the opacity, maybe let's say to 30, and the flow to 20. So Shift 3 and Shift 2. Oops, Shift 2. This will change. This will change the numbers here without having to do it manually. Okay. If you don't see the brush, press the caps lock to switch to precision mode and normal mode. And I'm gonna paint with, in this case, with white here to reveal, well, to bring back that. And here as well. Actually, probably I'm gonna just opacity 20 is too low, so I'm gonna raise it to 30 and float to 50. 30 and 50. And just try again. Yeah, that works a lot better. Okay. I just want to have some transition here. It's a bigger brush. Like that. I think that looks a little better. Still, what you can do even is just go into the layer styles and use the blend if. So you can tell Photoshop that if the underlying layer has black on it, we don't want to see this grass like that. Okay, but that's not the purpose of it, because that's the reason why we placed this image on top. So we wanted to cover those black areas. But if you want to try that, you can do it and see what you can get. Maybe you get something that blends a little better. Oops, make sure you're not painting on the layer mask. Well, on the layer, I mean, make sure you paint on the layer mask. So just paint on the layer, not on the layer mask. And with this brush, you can just paint on the edges and get a little bit of a better blending and reveal some of the underlying image. Okay, we're done with the image, with the background, sorry. And the next thing we want to do is put our can right over there. So let's go to File, Place. Well, actually, let me go to the folder so you can see it better. So these are the two images that you can use for this. Of course, you can use other images if you want, a bottle or whatever. I just thought it was fun to use this cola can. So I have these two renders which I created in Sketch. Now in Blender, I downloaded the 3D object from sketchfab.com, and inside of this folder on the 3D cola can, you will find the object itself, the 3D object. If you want to render it in Photoshop, this OBJ file can be opened in Photoshop, so you can import this in Photoshop if you want to. Let me just spin it around so you can see it. You can import this into Photoshop if you want and texturize it. Here are the textures that you need. This is not the original texture actually. This base color, I edited this in Photoshop to add the dirt because it was too clean for my taste, and I used this texture to make it a little more dirty. I'm not going to show you how to import this in Photoshop because I already have a tutorial explaining how to do that, and I'm going to put just a note here. You'll see it appearing on the screen, and you can watch that tutorial if you want to. So I'm just going to import this render in here. It's in PNG format, so you will not have to delete any background. Just put it there and just place it wherever you want. I'm going to leave it really big like this. And okay, I think it looks nice here. So the next thing I want to do is just create a layer mask, because we need to erase part of the bottom and make it look like it's actually like buried into the ground a little bit. So for that we need to create the layer mask, get the brush tool, and I'm going to use a pretty hard brush, maybe 80%. Actually the hardness of the brush also depends on the size of it, because if you have something really low, it's gonna look really hard. But if you have a really big brush, the same hardness value could look like it's really too little, so you have to increase it. So I'm gonna start with a pixel brush size of about 95 pixels. Remember that I'm using a smaller canvas size, so you'll have to use something a little bigger than I do. But just try to get the edges to look a little like something like this, like what I have here. And don't just create something straight like this. Let me deactivate the transfer. Don't create something straight, it's not looking realistic. Just create something that has a little bit of a wave on it, and that will see what I'm talking about. When you use a big brush with the same hardness value, it looks like the brush is softer. Okay, because this is a percentage. So I'm going to use a bigger higher hardness value and a bigger brush. Sometimes when you use big brushes, it looks like it's just painting on small increments like this, like it jumps. So in order to fix that, just reduce the spacing to about, don't reduce it less than 5%, because your Photoshop is gonna run slow. So I'm gonna just do it again. Okay, something like that. Something that's a little bit irregular, and that's it. You don't have to create anything. Oops. Ooh. Let's do it again. Okay, I wanted just to create that thing over there. Okay, now we created the layer mask. We have to now start, well, actually we're not done with this. So I want to create some grass here. And the only way I can create grass in Photoshop is using the default Photoshop brushes. But in Photoshop, you see, they changed the panel and we have this shit here, which I don't like at all, to be honest. I like the old panel. So you don't even have these brushes in Photoshop. I imported this from Photoshop CS6, and you will have these two brushes in the pack, well, in the assets folder, so you can use them if you want to. Or you can just download grass brushes from the internet and just deactivate the transfer and the color dynamics. And with this brush, we're gonna paint with black right over here, but let's see, what's the size? That's too big. I'm gonna make it smaller. I'm gonna make a couple of passes. One over there, like so, with this bigger brush. Okay, and now I'm gonna make something really small and just fill the gaps. Okay, like that. Here you can still define that curvature that you created, okay, and get a better result. Okay, I think that looks nice. Okay, I think it looks a lot better than, let's see if I can find this. Then, okay, where that is, then this. You can see this line over here, it looks really weird and really ugly, and this looks a little more realistic now. Of course, we still have to create shadows, and that's what we're gonna do next. You can use layer styles if you want, so you can go into the layer styles and use, for example, a gradient overlay and use it normal black to white like this, and I just changed a bit the angle, get this light, well, this shadow to be on the bottom, and change the blend mode to multiply. The white will go away and we only have left this black, so we have to reduce this quite a lot to about there. And the scale, I have it, well, let's get something soft. If you have something really low, the transition is it's too steep, so just increase a little bit the scale. Also, I wanted to add a color overlay because I don't like that color. It's too saturated for my taste, and I use this one. You can copy the same color value, you can make it a little more reddish if you want, and use the hue, or do not use color. Well, actually, color looks nice. It looks a lot nicer than hue, more realistic in my case. Well, you can use any of those, any of color or hue if you want. I think I like better the color blend mode. And that's pretty much it. If you want to create a glow of light here on top, you can use another gradient overlay and set it on, let's say, for example, screen. And let's see, black and white. Use this like so. I assume that my light comes from here, from the top right. Okay, that's why I create this light on the top and slightly on an angle about, let's say, 75 or yeah, even 80 degrees. And I'm gonna drop the opacity. I have this on screen. That means the black will go away and will have no effect. But the white here, I want to have it. I want to have a yellowish touch on it. Okay, see that? I think this will integrate this can a little more. That's maybe the hardest part, integrating this on the background. And I think that now it looks better. Of course, we still have to create the shadows on the can itself and also on the ground. Let's start creating the shadow on the can. So let's create a new layer, clip it on the cola layer, and I'm gonna name this shadow can. Okay, now I'm gonna get the brush tool, and here we're gonna work with really low opacity brushes because we need control here. So I'm gonna use an opacity of 20 and a flow of 30. You can change this using the numeric keys on your keyboard. Just type the number 2 for 20, 5 for 50 or whatever, and then shift and the number for the flow. Shift 3 gets you flow 30%. Shift 5 will get you the flow to 50%. So that's how you do it. And just use black. You can press D to reset the colors to black and white. And just create a stronger shadow right over here on the bottom. Actually, it should be quite strong. And then I increase the brush size, and just with a single pass or a couple of passes, just create this shadow, okay? Next, we have to create a shadow on the ground. For that, we have to create a new layer under the giant cola layer. Control click on the new layer icon to create it underneath. And we'll name it shadow ground. Okay, now here we're gonna use the same technique of painting manually, especially here on the left side. Oh, that's not looking nice. Let's drop the flow to 10%, so Shift 1. This will drop the flow. Okay, so let's create a shadow like that, especially here on the left side. Something is not looking that nice. I think it's that. Yeah, it's this part over here. Anyways, let's leave it like it is. This shadow should be really subtle, so if you don't want to create it, just paint over here and that's it. Oops. Let me do it again. It's not looking that realistic, and most likely it's because of this. Oops. It's because of this layer mask. I use a brush that was too big. Well, let's try blend mode, maybe soft light, and see maybe that looks a little better. Because actually we don't want to see the color itself. We just need to darken this a little bit. Yeah, soft light is not looking that good. Linear light, it's just looking like, let's see, color burn or linear burn. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same. I don't know how I created the shadows here. I think they look a little more realistic. Yeah, it's because the brush was a lot smaller here. Let's try and undo that with the brush tool. Select this and rotate this to create the opposite, and just paint with white to remove this. Okay, so I'm painting with the grass over the same layer mask to remove the taller blades of grass. Okay. And now the shadow should look a little more realistic, especially if I paint it right over here. Oops, but not that strong. 30 and 20, I think it's enough for this. A little better, not much better, but anyways, I'm gonna leave it like that. You get the idea. And what else? Let's bring our man here. So let's open our stock folder. Let's go to Giant Cola, and my hard drive is really slow. Okay, this is the image that I used, but as I said, you can use this other one if you want. Let's use this one because it's a little easier to extract. First, I'm going to crop the image because I don't need all of it. Just oops. Actually, I'm going to crop this guy like that. Make sure you have delete crop pixels activated, and now you will see it all better. Before I extract this from the background, I want to remove this chromatic aberration, and I'm going to use the camera raw filter for that. So I'm going to go to filter and choose camera raw. You can use it with the hue saturation, sampling that color and desaturating it, but this one is a little quicker and it works really good. And for the green one, I'm going to move this right over here and increase the amount of green. Yep, like so. I'm going to click OK. Click OK, and chromatic aberration is gone. In order to select the background, you can use the magic wand tool. It's actually really easy to select because it's all white or gray. Just click once and just shift click to add areas to your selections. Yeah, And that's it, I think. I'm gonna alt click the new layer mask and I'm gonna invert it. Select and mask. And let's change a little bit the on white, on black. Let's leave this on overlay. And now I can zoom in a little more with alt and with the mouse wheel. Let's see how the edges look like. Actually, they are looking pretty good. Also, we're gonna make this guy very small and the edges will almost, you will not see that edge almost, but anyway, let's shift the edge a little bit, increase the feather, oops, not that much, and increase the contrast quite a lot, and click OK. And with this layer mask created, I'm gonna move the whole guy here with the layer mask on my new, well, here on my image. Get the move tool with the V key, just click on the image, select the thumbnail first, click on the image and drag it to your other tab. And when you let go here, it's gonna add this to your image with the layer mask. Let's drag it on top of everything. And now I'm gonna convert it into a smart object, because I don't want to apply the layer mask just in case I need to make touch-ups. I have it there, because now if I double click on this, it's going to open on full resolution, and I have all the editing capabilities. Make it smaller, maybe something like that, just a little smaller, and click, well, press enter. And now let's create a layer mask for this and get rid of this piece of mountain that we have here. Opacity of the brush and flow 100%, paint with black, and like so. It's important to know the keyboard shortcuts, because what I did here in just maybe 2 seconds, if you're not used to using the keyboard shortcuts, something as simple as resetting the colors, then reversing them, and then select the brush tool, set the opacity and flow to 100%. That takes maybe 5 seconds or something even more. At the end, that's gonna add up, and you're gonna waste too much time. So learn the keyboard shortcuts, at least the most essential ones, and you're gonna save a lot of time. I'm gonna put my man over there. Let's name this layer man. And before we move on, let's create the rope that I created there. It's really easy to create, and it was very fun doing it. Get the pen tool with the P key, or make sure you set this to path on the top, on the options bar, right over there. I received a comment from someone complaining that it's not clearly where I put my mouse, and I activated the zoom option on my Mac, but I have to do it manually, and since I'm not using the mouse, it's difficult to zoom in. But now I put a highlight on my cursor so you can see what I'm moving. Okay, let's create that rope. So on this new layer which I created, I will name it rope, like so. With the pen tool, set the option to path. Let's start creating the rope. So I'm going to start from here. I'm going to click and drag like this. And from here, you have to think a bit about how real rope would hang on this can over here. I would suppose that we have a contact point over here and over here. So I'm going to create one another point here. Well, the first point is not, I don't like it, so I'm going to put it straight like so. Create another point over there and another point over here, like so. And now we can create the second point a little lower. Well, actually, let's put it right here, almost on the bottom. And now create one point there. And this is the part of the rope that it's on the ground. Okay. Now, this is just a path. We have to paint the actual rope. And if this point, for example, it doesn't look right, like in my case here, you can select it, press Alt, and click and redraw this. Okay, like so. Now, in order to draw this rope. Actually, you could have painted it manually with the brush, but I'm not a good painter, so I created the path, and I will tell Photoshop to use the brush and stroke this line that I painted. So I'm going to select the brush first because I have to set it up, and I'm going to use hardness 100%. The brush size is going to be 2 pixels. Actually 2 pixels is enough. Let's create a you can test it. The path is not going to go away, so I think 2 pixels is enough for the size of it. And now I'm going to go back to the pen tool. I'm going to right click with the path selected. If for any reason the path is not active, let's assume you don't see what I did. If the path disappears, simply go into the paths panel here. If you don't see it here, just go to window and choose path and just click on it. It's gonna open it, and with the pen tool, control click it, and it's gonna select it. Okay, and now with the pen selected and the brush setup, I'm gonna right click and choose stroke path, and Photoshop is gonna ask me what tool I want to use in order to stroke this. I'm gonna choose the brush tool because I already set it up, and I'm gonna click OK. I'm not gonna check simulate pressure, just click OK, and Photoshop will use the brush to stroke this line. Okay, and now I can press delete to remove that path, and that's it. Or go to the path and uncheck it, and it's gonna disappear. It's not gonna be visible anymore. So we have the rope here. Of course, we have to create the shadows, and if you can create some texture. Actually, you can, if you press Ctrl Command U and choose colorize and increase the lightness a bit, you can create a brown color for this rope, like so, and you can add a texture. Actually, you can use this texture over here or download any kind of texture. You can even you just go into the styles and choose pattern overlay. Choose any pattern that you see here. If you click here, you can choose the rock patterns, and it's better if you watch this at 100% zoom, and just choose any pattern that you want, increase the opacity, and of course the scale should be a lot smaller. Pin light is not a good blend mode. Let's leave it on normal so we can see it better, and drop the scale to 50%, even less, 25. And what this is going to do is just going to add a texture there, and now we can change the blend mode of that texture, of this pattern, to something different. Yep, soft light looks nice. Maybe even overlay will look a little better. Let's try another pattern to see how it looks like. Yeah, this one looks better, I think. Yeah, I like this one. Overlay, maybe color dodge, with a lower opacity. Yeah, that looks nice, but maybe it's a bit too bright, so let's make it darker. Press Ctrl Command U again and drop the lightness. Yeah, that looks a little better. Okay, and just that texture is not that visible, but it's enough, okay, to tell that it's actually a rope. Let's create a layer mask for this rope and use that same brush, that grass brush, and let's hide this a little bit. If you don't see the brush, if you don't see the shape of it, maybe it's because you have the caps lock pressed, which switches to high precision mode. So if you want to see the outline of the brush, press the caps lock again, and just paint with black to hide part of that rope on the grass. Okay, next let's create the shadow of the rope, and for that we can use the shadow can, because this layer is clipped to the can, and everything that we paint here is going to be visible only on the can itself. So I'm going to get the brush tool, a round brush, hardness set to about 70%, and of course the size should be really small, 2 pixels, which is the diameter of the rope itself. Opacity 40, flow 30, and just a couple of strokes. Yeah, that's too strong. I'm gonna activate the transfer option, and I'm gonna put it on pen pressure. If you don't see this, if you don't have a graphics tablet, just drop the opacity even more to about 20 and flow 10 and try it that way. And here I'm gonna assume that this rope is not touching the can, only over here on this touch points that I told you. And I'm going to create something like this. This will create the illusion that this rope is hanging on the air, and the same over here. Maybe it's too visible, but anyways. It doesn't have to be a straight line, okay? So don't try to create something straight. It doesn't even matter. Just create a shadow like that, and that's it. Okay, it's too thick, but anyways, I'm gonna leave it like that. Okay, so that's my shadow and my rope. Let's go back to the man layer. Control click it to select the layer that belongs to him. And there's something that I don't like here. I don't like the color of his jacket. I want to make it something more close to this one and less contrast, because he's not looking to integrate it into this image on the background. Okay, so since this is a smart object, I'm going to select the thumbnail of it and press Ctrl Command U to open the hue saturation, and I'm going to decrease the saturation, but only on the reds. So I'm going to click this hand icon, sample the reds, and just drop the opacity a little bit, like so, and probably make it a little more yellowish, more orangey looking. Click OK. And contrast is a little too high. You could use the shadows and highlights if you want, and just set everything to 0 first. And on the shadows, you can increase the amount of shadows and then increase the tone and the radius. And you can add a little bit of light on some areas of the image, like so. Great. Now we have to create some shadows for him as well. Well, actually, also, if you want to add more light here, you can go into the layer styles and do the same that we did with the can, which is using the gradient overlay, and probably use the, I don't know, maybe the color dodge blend mode, because it's a little stronger, and just add more light there on the front part of his body. Okay, and still the contrast is too high for my taste. I'm going to open the, well, actually I'm going to use the selective color, and I'm going to use the blacks here. I'm going to clip this to the man layer, because on the blacks I want to reduce the amount of blacks, and on the neutrals as well, just a little bit to get a sort of a washed out effect. And with this sliders you can add cyan, or, well, add different colors to your neutrals. I think I should leave the blacks to how they were, like so, and just remove some light, well, add some light on the blacks. Okay, now let's create another well, actually we can use the shadow, we can use the shadow can to create the shadow of the man with the brush tool. Opacity 40, flow 30, I think that's enough, because I also have the transfer option checked. Hardness about 60, and just paint some shadow like that. A softer, well, a stronger shadow where he touches that, well, the can, and then something, oh, I made it really horrible. Let's remove it and paint it again. I have to zoom in really zoomed in. Okay, 20 for the opacity. Even with the pen pressure on, it's hard to create a soft brush like so. If you watch it at 100%, you'll used to see it a little better. I created a really horrible shadow here. Let's see on the original. My hard drives run really slow. Okay, oops, I detach this. Okay, see how I created the shadow there. Let's close this. And this one is not looking that realistic, but anyways. So I think we're done with this. Let's create some adjustments. I like to use the color lookups, and I usually use my pack, my Portrait Awesome pack, which you can download from my website if you're a premium member. If you're not a premium member, you can buy it for €5 or $5 or something like that. I think I put it on the website. The link's on the video description if you want to check it out. And I'm going to put the opacity of this one to 50. So it's PA21. And I'm going to use another one, and I'm going to use the PA22. You can use any other adjustment that you like, but I like this ones. And I'm going to put the opacity of this one to 21%. Okay, this is what it does to my image. Creates sort of a, I think, a bit of a more cinematic, or I don't know. And now I'm going to merge everything with Shift Alt Command E. I'm going to merge everything onto a new layer, and I'm going to use the camera raw filter, which I always do. If you don't have the camera raw filter here, on my previous tutorials I explained how to do this. Basically, you save this as a TIFF file and then open it back in Photoshop. And here, maybe I'm going to increase the vibrance and drop the saturation a little bit. And with a radial gradient, I'm going to create some light over here. Let's reset first. Reset local corrections, and I'm going to increase the exposure just a little bit, and I'm going to remove the clarity. This will add a glow of light, like so. Dehaze, sorry. Dehaze minus, well, negative values on the dehaze, and a little warmer, like that. Okay, I think that's okay. What else we could do? We can create a vignette effect. One thing that I don't like, well, it's not that I don't like it, but I miss it, is the ability to move the vignette effect if I want to. So I only can have it centered. I cannot move it around, or at least I don't know how to do it. Okay. The overall image is too dark, so I'm going to increase the exposure of the whole thing and increase the clarity. And here you can, with the HSL, you can change the colors if you want to, or use a split tone effect if that's what you like. And with the camera calibration, you can totally change the saturation of each channel and create really weird colors on your image. Oh, that's not what I like. I think this one looks nice. Click OK. And let's see the before and after. Before camera raw and after. So it looks a little more contrasty and a little more crispy. Well, that's all. That's how I created this simple manipulation in Photoshop. In my opinion, it's not... I would like to add more things to it, make it a little more complex, but I ended up abandoning the project. But I already announced this on Instagram, and some people was asking me, well, when do I publish the tutorial? And actually I forgot about it. So here you have it. If you like it, just give me a like on YouTube and share the link to others. That will help me that will help other people to find my YouTube channel. If you upload this to Instagram or Facebook, use the hashtag PSDBox so I can see what you've done. And good luck. Thanks for watching me, and I hope you will join me on the next tutorial.